For more on the security aspects of this story, let's bring in Jamil Jaffer from the National Security Institute. He's worked in the White House as well as on Capitol Hill for the Select Committee on Intelligence, among others. Jamil, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we've all had 2 days to digest this, and you've seen reaction from the White House to the Hill. What is your reaction to all of this?
Well, obviously, a mortifying situation, one that nobody's proud of, but also one that, has some sort of, basis in reality. We found out that the most senior officials of the U.S. government use chat groups like we do. They send emojis and the like. And here's the reality. When you have very strict security precautions in place, as they should be, people get creative and they find workarounds so they have to get their jobs done. This appears to have been a very bad example of that, unfortunately, but not particularly surprising. I bet when we look back at this, if we go deep on this, I'll bet we will find out that the Trump administration and probably the Biden administration have been using Signal in their prior iterations, and for a lot of stuff, maybe not this kind of highly sensitive national security stuff, but I bet there's a lot more widespread use than we thought.
You know, some in the Trump administration say that the journalist who had been looped into this group chat, that's Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, that he should have left the conversation earlier. Where do you land on that assessment?
I mean, let's be serious. I mean, this idea that somehow a reporter gets on a group chat, he's got the most senior official in the U.S. government. I'm not sure I would have left if I were him at all. I would have stayed in and monitored the thing as long as I could. At the end of the day, though, Jeffrey Goldberg was added to this thing. There's been a lot of allegations by the administration about him being a very liberal reporter, not liking the administration, being anti-Trump, whatever. That's all true. If that is true, that's fine. It doesn't change the fact that he reported a legitimate, accurate story. And that's what the administration's got to grapple with. Rather than going after the reporter, they should just own up and say, yeah, we use Signal to get the job done. What probably wasn't the right call. We're going to change our ways going forward. But it also demonstrates the real problem here, Maya. The government doesn't have a good, capable, user-friendly chat capability for people to act in real time at the classified level. That's a real problem, and it's what's causing government officials to do this sort of crazy thing that now has gotten them into trouble.
Well, during testimony on the Hill this week, we've had multiple people say that the Signal app comes downloaded on government devices. And going to your point there about the fact that there doesn't really seem to be a government alternative, a government app that does something similar to what the Signal app does, should the Signal app even be on these devices?
Well, it was a surprise to me to hear that the CIA, that John Ratcliffe said at his testimony yesterday, that one of the first apps he had downloaded on his computer at CIA was Signal. I had never heard that. That was a new fact for me. It may have been reported previously, but I wasn't aware of it. And it's surprising to me because, Signal, while it is an end-to-end encrypted messaging app and very good at that, I use it myself. You do wonder why does the government have an SCI-rated version of this? And if they don't, what do they expect people to do other than use this capability if they're going to put it on their systems? They tell them don't use it for these purposes, but you're there, you're operating in real time. You know what's interesting, Maya, about this whole thing is you've got all these senior government officials on it. Not one said, hey, should we be using this other government app, X chat or whatever? Probably because either there isn't one or it's so terrible it's unusable.
In the White House press briefing today, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said no classified information was in those messages. From what you've seen of the messages that have been released, do you think it included classified information?
This is a complicated question. Two reasons. One, a lot of people have been talking about war plans. It doesn't appear to have war plans in the classic sense. There wasn't sort of a large operational plan. That being said, there were very clear operational details that had they gotten out publicly before the strikes happened, things about what kind of American fighter jets were being used, things about not necessarily the name of the terrorist was being targeted, but the fact that he was on his way to his girlfriend's house. Those are facts that, if revealed publicly before the strikes happened, could have subjected those Americans flying those planes to being attacked and could have gotten that terrorist to help himself get away if he had figured out it was him. Now, none of that happened, and the strikes were successful. It doesn't mean that didn't create a vulnerability. It doesn't mean that information wasn't classified. I don't know why the administration is saying these kind of operational details typically, until they actually happen, are typically classified, not necessarily top secret compartmented, but could be classified. And so they must have a reason why they're saying that. Maybe they believe that if Pete Hegseth transmitted them, he's an original classification authority for defense information. Maybe their view is that he declassified them in real time. That can happen, by the way. For example, when President Trump tweeted that picture, highly classified picture of an Iranian missile, he was declassifying that picture in real time. He has the authority to do that. I don't know if that's the play they're making. They haven't said that, but that might be the theory of the case they have. But we'll see going forward.
Jamil Jaffer from the National Security Institute, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Maya.